Hi, good morning, and welcome to Sales Stories with Nate Teske. I'm your host, Nate Teske, and my co host Rob is on as well today. And collectively, we have about 60, 70 years of sales experience and a lot of different facets. So we have a great guest with us today, Chris Schaff, who I used to work with years ago, and we'll introduce him here in a moment. Rob,
Yeah, excited for another great show. Good to see you, Nate.
good morning, Chris.
Good morning. Good morning, Nate. Good morning, Rob. How you guys doing?
Doing well, doing well.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for taking time, Chris, because we know you have a lot going on. As we get started, Chris, it'd be good for you just to talk a little bit about your background, how we worked together years ago, and then start this discussion from there.
Sure. Thanks, Nate. So I started out, graduated from college in the early 90s, spent the first 6 years of my working life as a officer in the United States Army. Got out of the Army, took some of what I learned there and applied that to do some government contracting and consulting. And then I got into like the monitoring and management space and worked for a small boutique firm. Worked for a couple of small boutique firms for a while and did that for about another 6 years, where I did a lot of pre-sales and some sales. And then I started my own company back in 2006. And I've been doing that ever since. I did a lot of integration work. Most of it was for Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies. I kind of broke off from that about, I would say about 8 years ago or more. And now the focus of our business is primarily on small to medium-sized clinics, specifically SLPs, OTs, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and therapists that focus on applied behavior analysis or for individuals who are on the spectrum. Also in areas of speech and language. And that's kind of me in a nutshell. And that, I think, brings us current. It's where I am today.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for the background. And
Mhm.
Chris, over the years, you've had the benefit of working not only in a pre-sales role, but also in a sales role. And when we worked together years ago, you got the benefit of working with multiple salespeople on different engagements. So
Mhm.
it'd be great to hear kind of your best and worst sales stories slash experiences, and what you learned from them, and kind of the takeaways that you had, because you work with a lot of people, right? I know just in the company
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
got, you had about a dozen people you worked with, besides
Yeah.
myself.
Yes. Yep. Sure did. Yeah. Had a chance to work with lots of different sales people with varying degrees of success, obviously. And I think as I reflected back, and we talked about this before about the best and worst, and actually the best and the worst were actually the same one, which is really kind of strange. It's, the ones that failed, that they failed fairly quick, and everybody has a failure, and that's their worst. My failures weren't actually terrible, because they often failed fast, and I often learned from those failures. It was the successes that I didn't learn as much from, and that's why my biggest failure was also the success. So I'll start with the success part first. We were a small company at the time. There's a handful of us. We all wore lots and lots of hats. So I was doing implementations. I was doing sales. I was, doing back office running the company and that type of thing. Nate, this is one that you and I worked on. We were both at a point in our lives and our careers where it was like, we could really use a boost here. uh, we could use a little help, and we both looked at each other and like, hey, yeah, help me, I'll help you, and vice versa. And you had gotten us into an account, and they were I think a CLEC or a telco. Or I'm not sure. It's been a long time, so I probably got some of the terminology wrong. But they were a internet and telecommunications provider in the Midwest, and they needed an enterprise monitoring system. So they needed a fairly large system to cover a variety of different technologies to be able to limit downtime and improve customer satisfaction, and which was exactly what my company was doing at the time. So, Nate, you had got us in touch and got us to the right people. We were getting, I got to obviously the gatekeepers first. The gatekeepers introduced us to sort of higher level gatekeepers and ultimately to the decision maker. And, it was a long sales process, as many of those Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 processes are, and the larger the deal, the longer the sales process, the more people need to be involved, more people that need to sign off and so forth. And so we put together a really good contract. We put together, we made a number of different pitches to a number of different people. And then we, really, really hit our sales process. And that's something else that I'm going to talk about as well, about what I would tell the younger me. But the sales process, and I don't subscribe and I don't, say that one process is better than another. But if you use one and you really stick to it and really work it hard, the sales process is, I think, an incredibly invaluable tool. And I used Sandler. It was bond and build rapport, upfront contracts, pain, budget, decision maker, sales fulfillment, post sale, and went right down the list of steps. All the way from bonding and building rapport was the most important step, and then we did the rest of them. And I think that was kind of the big victory. And I think it was the step that our competitors, who were also in that account, they really missed it. And they thought, everybody thinks bonding and building rapport is it's drinks, it's, the golf outing, it's this type of thing. And, to some extent, and everybody's different, everybody's personalities are different. And to some extent, that's the case. But what I realized is really bonding and building rapport means developing trust. And when all the dinners have been eaten and all the rounds of golf have been played, somebody has to bet their career on you, because when you've got multiple commas in the bottom line are changing hands, if your customer gets it wrong, they are going to be looking for a new job. So they need to know and understand without a doubt that you are who you say you are and you can do what you say you can do. And the solution, the services, the software, and all of everything that you're putting together and suggesting is absolutely 100% going to work. And that's the bonding and building rapport step. Very few people understand that. Very few salespeople understand that that's what the customer means by bond and build rapport. It's trust. And my competitors, who were much bigger, much more well-known, they were pitching software that was much better known. They did not understand that. And that's where I really hit them hard. Is I pushed for a week long or more proof of concept. Nobody likes doing them. Everybody hates them. But if you do it and you knock it out of the park on a proof of concept, you're quick. You hit every milestone that you're supposed to hit, and you address every single question that they have, and you put it in front of them and allow them to touch it and play with it, allow it to interact with their system and their environment. It's incredibly invaluable. And also, it gets to see them see how you work with their teams. It sees how organized are you, how effective are you in managing a project. If we get into something that's going to be 3, 6, 9 months, do you know how to run something this big? And that proof of concept also not only just proves out, does the software know, do what it does, but do the people also know how to get things done? And so we did a proof of concept and knocked it out of the park. And that really was the key. And that's how we won. Rob, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, what you're describing beautifully is the emotional component of the sale. There's
Yes.
so many people that feel like, oh, I need to have the perfect spreadsheet and I need the perfect ROI. Yeah, that's helpful. But to your point, if there's 2 commas in the invoice, there's an emotional component that needs to be tapped into. And
100%.
if you miss that, you're
Percent. Yep. If you get it right and you deliver everything that you say you're going to deliver, you have a customer for life. Because the other way too, I mean, when they score a big victory after that investment, these folks, their clout increases. A lot of times you get promoted, or they're up for promotion. And it's a heck of a thing for, the manager, the senior manager, and those VPs to put on their resume. And that's somebody, you talk about building your Rolodex. I mean, that's how you do it. And that's how you get people in the doors. Yeah. So that was the success part of it. Any other questions on that, or can we talk about the failure part?
One question I have, because I don't remember, did the customer pay for that proof of concept, or was there any, when I say pay, what skin in the game did they have?
None. That was the other part of that trust factor, because I didn't want them actually to pay for it. Now that's another thing where a lot of people are going to be like, oh, no way, I'm not signing up for that. And to that, I would respond, there is no such thing as not paying for sales. You are going to pay for sales. You're going to pay for the sales people. You're going to pay for the investment. And most importantly, the investment needs to be in that bond and build rapport step. You've got to invest. And again, that trust is, look, I'm going to put my skin in the game, and I am going to put my time and my expense on the line here to make you as comfortable as you possibly can to make this decision. So they didn't pay a dime out of pocket, and I was confident that in our ability to do this proof of concept, and I was confident that if we did this proof of concept and did it right, they were 100% going to go with us. I gave them no reason to say no.
Yeah, yeah. And the one comment I would make on that is, because I wanted to clarify if it was paid or not, in certain situations, there's risk in everything, right? One of our
Yes.
attorneys years ago said to me, the customer's like, well, this is risky. And he was our general counsel, actually. He said, hey, Bob, there's risk when you take a step out of bed in the morning. It was a great comment, right? You can slip, you can fall, whatever. But from a risk standpoint, with it being a 1 week deal, you're investing a week of your time. Obviously, the customer also, right? Because they're spending whether it's going to work or not. And the reason I bring that up is those folks that might be watching this, whether you're a newer sales exec or a more senior person, and I hate to use the word "it depends," right? Because that's the consultant answer. Yeah, we could do it, but et cetera.
Yeah, I've used that.
Yeah, exactly. So for bigger deals, if you're talking like a multi-month proof of concept, they're paying, right? Because you can't.
I would agree. Yeah, that I agree.
Which, and again, it's situational. It depends on the particular client, but at any rate, so I'm curious to hear like the bad part of it and what was bad about the second half of your story here.
Yeah. So the second half, it was bad. Not from the sales. I think, the actual selling and fulfilling the sale and getting the contract, I think went superb. But the after action review, and especially, and this fell on me 100%, the after part where the analysis was just like, why did you win? How did you win? What did you do to win? And I think, I correctly identified, the proof of concept was important, identifying the correct decision makers, making sure that, the pain was real, the budget was real, the decision-making process was real. I think all of that did well. The fulfilling the sale and post-sale, I think, did a fine job there. But looking at it afterward and said, okay, because once you get a deal like that, the first question everybody asks is, how do you replicate that? How do you get the next 20 of these, the next 50 of these, grow like crazy? I did not assess the sales process correctly at all. Everybody talks about the funnel and the top of the funnel, the middle, the bottom, and so forth. Nate, you were the top of the funnel, and I was the middle and bottom. I looked at everything that I had done in the middle and bottom of that funnel and thought, boy, I need somebody else to help out with this, because I'm the CEO of the company. I can't just do this all the time. I've got a delivery staff. I've got back office. I got other channel partners I want to get engaged, and so on and so forth. And I thought, well, the top of the funnel, plenty of folks out there that can bang away on a phone. It's no problem there. I'll just go find some other cold caller to set up these appointments. And that was an incredibly cavalier and terrible analysis on my part. Not to say that the middle and the bottom of the funnel were easy by any respect. They were hard, and I still did need some help with that. And I needed to bring people on, but I was very casual about the top of the funnel. Getting the right people on the phone to get to the right decision maker is incredibly difficult. Like you said, Nate, before we started, you need somebody not just with a thick skin, because you're going to hear the word no a lot. You're going to hear more than the word no a lot. And you are going to, I think that role needs to be a senior person. A lot of people will probably disagree with me on that and say, senior people don't want to do that. They want to go out in the field. They want to make the big bucks and so on and so forth. You got to figure out how to pay your inside sales or the outreach people. You got to figure out how to pay them. Especially if you're starting up and there's only so much VC funding and you don't really have the marketing engine that the bigger guys have. You're not putting out ads in the Super Bowl, right? So you're going to have to figure out, you got to have people that know how to kick in that door and do it gently enough and do it in a way that they not only can get to the right person, but also when they get the right person on the phone, to ask the right questions and to get them to believe enough, especially at those senior manager and those C and V level folks. They got 15 minutes, maybe less. So some caller on the phone that they don't know, that takes a lot of skill, and it's skill that isn't taught really that well. It's just, you're just pounding away. And I think your seniority, your skill, your past experience, I think helped you tremendously in making that particular call anyway. So, and of course, and I made my decisions going forward based on that. I did not invest in the top of the funnel. I invested in the middle and the bottom, and that was a huge miss. And so that was the failure that came out of it that, affected the course of my business for a few years. And that's the failure that I got out of it.
So it's a really good point you bring up, Chris. Qualification.
Yeah. Yep. Qualification.
I would qualify almost every call.
Mm.
And Rob and I talked about this with another guest. No is not a bad thing to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's definitive, right? And I would tell customers, look, as we go through the sales cycle, if for some reason we're not a fit, just tell me, right?
Yeah.
All business people, our time is valuable. And I would tell customers, look, your time is valuable. I value my time probably more, right? Because if I'm someone that's not going to purchase, or it's not a fit for whatever reason, hold on. Right. And, the other thing I would say is, you talk about doing cold calls and in different jobs that I had, sometimes I had like a sales development rep or a business development person where he or she was usually a more junior person, right? Sometimes that's what they like to do for their career, which is fine. But a lot of the newer sales people that I was working with doing the business development, their ultimate goal was to get to being a sales exec, right?
Sure.
At least me personally, a lot of salespeople that I worked with over the years, and some were very successful, they would beat the hell out of those poor people, right? Hey, you need to get me more leads. I took the other approach because I'm like, look, I've done that type of job. I had to build my own leads in companies where you started, they're like, here you go, Nate, here's your territory. The company you and I worked at, they're like, here it is, go sell. I'm like, okay, who do I call? You got to figure this stuff out. And you got to figure it out fast.
Yep.
I would treat those business development people as equals because, number one, they're already intimidated by working with a very senior level sales exec, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, I looked at it as, you know what? These guys and gals are helping me build my business. I'm going to do whatever I can to make them successful, right? You coach them, you help them along the way, you help them write, email templates and such to get those customers involved. And I would even go as far as the very first call we had with the customer, I would have that sales development person on the call with us. Because it did two things. It did two things. I knew every one of them wanted to get to that next level and be a sales exec. I wanted to kind of get them in the boat with me and have them hear how I would do a first call and such. And I would keep apprised of what was going on with the opportunity, right? Because that's the only way people are going to learn. Right? I have with this whole podcast effort, ultimately it's going to become a book with all the different things we're hearing from people. More importantly, the reason I'm doing this is to show those newer sales execs how to do it the right way, how to be successful, things to do and not do, right? Don't be a ding dong. A common one that I like to say, but that takes a lot of different forms. So, to your point of building the funnel and getting to the right opportunities, they take on lives of their own, right? Every day unique. There are some commonalities you see through different sales cycles, but no two deal cycles are the exact same.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's right.
Doing it multiple times.
Yeah, I think that is a really great point. I mean, if you're beating on the inside sales folks because they're not getting you enough leads, what are you doing to help them out? And I think that I have seen reps that, got their lead and they ran with it. And I saw other reps that did bring the inside sales folks to a first meeting, a second meeting, a conference call. And I saw that those inside sales reps got better and better because they learned, because some people will say yes to a meeting because they think they're just going to get some free lunch. I mean, they're not a decision maker. They're not, no isn't bad. Yes could be bad. I mean, this could be a stringing you along kind of a thing. And they're not part of the process. And so, the inside folks need to be able to understand that and sniff those folks out as they, go through their chain of calls to finally get to that right person who's going to help you be productive in the sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things too, from when you're thinking about that top of the funnel and the people who are out prospecting, is recognizing the fact that the sales industry, and when I talk about that, I'm talking about across industries and verticals, would do a terrible injustice to especially newer reps because,
Yes.
you have all of these, new business development, sales rep, you've got all these different phrases and people say, oh, it's equivalent. We just call it something different. It isn't. There is a world of difference between somebody who's prospecting and somebody who's account managing. And I have yet to see somebody who is equally energized by hunting as they are by farming.
Yes.
They might be good at it. There's plenty of people who are good at both, but they don't like both equally. And that's really important.
Yeah, I 100% agree. If you only like doing that one thing in sales, then you're not going to be good at it. I just don't think. And I also think if you don't have a coaching, teaching mentality, then you're not going to be a good sales exec. I don't think, I've never seen a sales exec close a deal all by themselves. A lot of them think they have, a lot of them think they did. You did. Somebody helped you along the way. And if you want more help, you need to be good at teaching other people how to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a really good point, Chris, because especially when you're talking about the multiple comma deals,
Yes.
that customer expects you to bring in one of your executives. We just talked about this the other day with another one of my past colleagues. And when you're at a smaller, for lack of a better term, startup type company versus a Fortune 500 technology business, you got to punch above your weight, right?
Yes.
Bigger than you not, I don't want to say portray that you're bigger than you are, but you have to kind of elevate yourself. And one of my mentors, this guy Joe Marsden, he told me, he goes, customers, when you're a small company, customers expect that you bring in one of your executives, whether it's your SVP of development or your SVP of sales or the president of the company. Customers expect it because they know nothing is perfect, right? We did a yesterday with one of my old clients, and he said there are going to be problems no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? You're dealing with technology and you're dealing with people. The software may work rock solid, but there's people involved and people make mistakes, right? Things aren't done.
They sure do.
And he said when those mistakes happen, they want to have that executive they can go to and say, hey, we got to fix this right now, right?
Right.
In some of these cases, like you said, right? They're going to get fired if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And when that happens, if there is a problem and they can't address the issue or fix the issue very quickly, everybody gets involved, right? All hands on deck to fix it.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing we're talking about before with trust. I have to trust you on the way in, and I have to trust you when there's an issue.
Yep. That post-sale is a big part of it, for sure.
Yeah.
And back to the proof of concept. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Oh, no, I just said the emotional component doesn't go away. Yeah, go for it.
With respect to that proof of concept, there was a deal I did years ago where it was a very large company that we were working with, and we ended up doing a proof of concept. It was basically a 6-month. It was a 6-month. They pay a chunk of the deal, and then they can cancel at the end of that 6 months. So for 6 months, I was part of the deployment team, right? And I was on every single call. Went out on site with the customer multiple times. And then at the very end, when they could either cancel or stay on board, it wasn't even a question. They're like, hey, you guys proved out this. And to the point that I'll never forget, it was September 30th. And that was the end of the 6-month trial period.
Right.
President and our head of sales called me. It was like 6:00 Chicago time. And they're like, hey, Nate, I'm sorry, but the customer called us and they terminated the contract. I'm like, screw you. I talked to them earlier. We got it signed already and it's all good. But they were just busting my chops, up until when we, and actually, believe it or not, I had to get this executive to send me 2 separate emails confirming that he would cancel. Because the first one, the top guy was like, nope, it's not clear enough. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said he's not going to cancel. How much clearer can it be? And he goes, he has to say this because our legal team has to have whatever. I'm like, okay. So I called him back and the guy's like, WTF, why do I have to send you another one? But anyway, it was all good. But, in those scenarios, they take on lives of their own, right? And you have to be In many cases with those very large deals and transactions, after you close it, everything's getting started, right? Because just because you
Yeah.
close the deal, you got to make sure the post-sale piece. And the reason I bring that
Yep.
up, had I not done that 6 months of being part of the deployment team, it led to a contract that was significantly larger than the initial one that we did. And that initial deal was, that one deal was more than my annual quota at the company. So it was a
Yeah.
monster deal. And it's because we did such a good job, we actually built a whole new business around the next chunk of that deal, which we'd have
Mhm.
never done if I just sold it and then took off.
Yeah. Yep. Mhm.
And that level of trust they had, because the executive told me, he said, Nate, this runs our company. He goes, if this fails, not only is it my job, but publicly traded company, it could be a lot of problems down the road. He goes, and he said something to the effect of, we're giving you the crown jewel and making sure you're protected. So don't screw it up. Was kind of the message.
Yep.
No pressure there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then congratulations on making your quota for the year. Your quota next year is double.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Indeed.
But so kind of along those lines, Chris, looking back on your career, I mean, you've done a lot of different things. You've done sales, you've been in sales cycles. As a CEO of a company, I'm sure you've had salespeople selling things to you, right?
Oh, sure.
As you look back, what advice would you give yourself? Like when you're coming up, just getting in the work world, what would you tell yourself based on what you know now, going back in time, if you could, what would you tell yourself, whether it's advice on, hey, don't take things so seriously, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just curious from your perspective, what, knowing what you know now, what you tell your younger self.